What's up, everybody? Coming to you live from my parents' house. Ooh, you like that intro? I like that riff a little bit. Here is episode 31 of the Changavi Show. For those of you that are new, welcome. I am Anuj. Last name is in the show, so you should probably know that. Here we talk about everything trending from sports to pop culture to news. So everything that you possibly could be wanting to talk about, we're going to discuss, plus much, much more. Oh, that's my little newscaster voice. Y'all like that? For my OGs, you were probably like, what the fuck was that? Okay. Hello. Hope you all are doing amazing. Hope y'all have had a good week so far. But we got a lot to talk about. And I got like 8 topics ahead of us today, all sorts of departments, all sorts of areas of discussion. But, we start every show, every one of the 31 episodes has always started out with a quick check-in with your host. So, what's the vibe, Anuj? How are the vibes? The vibes are terrible. No, I'm kidding. The vibes, yeah, they're not the best right now. And the reason for that is the fact that spring quarter just started at De Anza, which is where I go to college, by the way. Community college, yay. Spring quarter just started. Spring quarter sucks. It's terrible. Because this is the quarter last year that I burnt out, and I just like completely eradicated myself off the face of the earth after I was done with calculus. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, I kind of am worried that I'm gonna have something similar happen this time around as well. But I'm trying to figure out good ways to make sure that doesn't happen. One of them is that I've already got into school, so I got to decide where I'm going to school. So theoretically, all I have to do is really pass all my classes. So why are you worried? But anyway, the vibes suck because I just don't like school, and I don't. I'm taking freaking geology, and geology is just the most useless class of all time. If you're not, listen, no hate to geology majors out there. Okay, I respect the grind. I respect the fact you want to study rocks and the Earth's geological formations and the shifts of tectonic plates, but that is not your boy's vibe. I'm just not into that. At least right now. Maybe in a few, maybe Changavi Show episode 61 will be tectonic plates and all the earthquakes that could possibly hit California very, very soon. I don't know, bro. Maybe. But I just don't want to take geology, and I guess I've just been feeling shitty about that the last couple of days. But other than that, though, things are picking up in life. It's kind of weird. I feel like the COVID chapter is slowly coming to a close, even for me, the kid that got stuck inside for 2 years. No, but things are changing. It's spring. The weather's beautiful here in the Bay, so not much to complain about. But the vibes are still kind of shitty because school started, and I don't like school. As I've made very clear on several segments on not only the after show but the Changavi Show as well. Okay. Listen, now that that's all over and we can get my vibes out of the way and stop talking about me, let's get into what we have to talk about today, which is the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs, listen, this is a topic I want to talk about because what the hell? I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a freaking truck outside my house. It is 11:40 at night. I theoretically this shouldn't happen, but anyway, the NBA playoffs. Okay, we did a similar topic with the Super Bowl way back when. I think episode 24, 23, something like that, early 20s. We did a Super Bowl episode where I basically broke down the Super Bowl for all of my new fans and for all of my people that wanted to get into football and didn't really know how. Because it's a big event and everybody wants to know everybody wants to be there and everybody wants to be in the know, but there's not enough resources out there breaking down the game. And so that's what I broke down the game for the Super Bowl. And so I basically really want to do the same thing with the NBA playoffs, which is, listen, the playoffs are complicated. There's a lot of things going down in regards to teams and seeding and all of these things. And there's a lot of layers going down. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who want to impress their significant others, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, whatever. And so to amaze those people in your life, I got you. I am your resource to fix your relationship and to spend time with your significant others. Okay, people? So partners that don't know sports, relax. Changavi's got you. The Changavi Show is here for you to explain what exactly is going on in the NBA. So let's get right into it. What is it looking like this year with the NBA playoffs? Okay. Pretty simple. So traditionally, probably what you're used to is like, oh, we're just going to discuss the playoffs, right? The NBA is going to go right into it. There's going to be seeds 1 through 8 on both sides. They're going to compete, and then there's going to be a champion at some point. That was the traditional look. So that was traditionally, it was the top 8 teams of each conference, 2 conferences in the NBA, East and the West, make the playoffs. And basically, it's their job to make it through the bracket. This year, though, like last year, but we didn't do this last year, it's a little different. There's been a new element that has been added into the playoffs, a pre-playoff tournament of sorts. Anuj, what the frick does that even mean? Okay, let's talk about it. There's something called the play-in tournament that's going on in the NBA right now. Okay, the play-in tournament is basically a tournament that's for both the West and the East, played separately, with between seeds 7 through 10. So the 7th best through the 10th best teams in each conference are going to gather and play a tournament to determine who gets the last 2 playoff spots. So seeds 1 through 6 right now are locked, but 7 and 8 are still being fought over by these respective 4 teams. So if that makes any sense. So 7, 8, 9, and 10 are competing for the 7th and the 8th spot. And it's a tournament to determine who can, potentially go to the playoffs. So basically, the way it works is that the 7 seed and the 8 seed of each conference are going to play each other, and the 9 and the 10 seed of each conference are going to play each other. So the 7 seed of the West and the 8 seed of the West play each other. The 9 seed of the West and 10 seed of the West play each other as well. Same thing goes for the East. Okay, so the winner of the 7-8 matchup gets the 7 seed in the playoffs. So they don't have to play anymore in the play-in tournament. They're out of the play-in tournament, and they get the 7 seed in the playoffs. But that's the winner of the 7 seed versus the 8 seed. So they get the 7th seed. But then the loser of the 7-8 matchup, so, whichever seed lost, goes on to play another game. And that's between the winner of the 9th seed and the 10th seed. So the winner of the 9th seed and the 10th seed will move on and play another game versus the loser of the 7th, 8th seed matchup to determine who gets the final spot in the playoffs. And basically, the loser of that gets eliminated, and the winner gets the final spot of the playoffs. It adds a little more drama and intrigue, and the commissioner introduced it a couple of years ago, and it's been done in different variations, but they figured out last year that this variation caused a lot of drama, and it was pretty intriguing, so they decided to keep it another year, and I think they're going to continue to keep this a part of the NBA playoffs. So it's good to explain it now so that in the future, when you guys are confused, you would have this idea in mind. The play-in tournament is going to exist. So the play-in tournament is going to happen before the playoffs. And when the play-in tournament finishes, you are locked into your top 8 seeds of each conference. You know which seeds are going to be in the East and which seeds are going to be in the West. So right now, the thing is, the NBA regular season hasn't wrapped up yet. It's currently in the process of wrapping up. We haven't even gotten to the point where we're having the play-in tournament. And so it's wrapping up and closing out. And so, there are a lot of seeds still to be in contention, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on, and the seeding of each conference is potentially going to be changed. So what I mean by seeding is the ranking of each team could go up or down based on these final games. If they win or they lose, you know how it is, right? The more games you win, the higher up you go in the standings. If you lose a couple, you could drop. So there's a lot of variation right now. But let's go through the current standings as of today, which is, I believe, Wednesday night. Wednesday, April 6th. As of Wednesday, April 6th, these are the standings, okay, in each conference. And I'm going to go through them really quickly and explain them as fast as I can. So let's start with the Western Conference, okay? This is the Western Conference only, and these are the teams that are relevant to the playoffs right now. Number 1 is the number 1 seed in the conference, and this is locked up, guaranteed. They are going to be the number 1 seed of the Western Conference. Phoenix Suns. The number 2 seed is the Memphis Grizzlies. They've clinched the playoffs, but their seeding is still in question, but they'll most likely be the 2 seed. Number 3 is Golden State, which is the Golden State Warriors, my team. They are the number 3 seed. Their seeding is still also in flux they could potentially drop. But the farthest that Golden State could drop down to is number 4. So they've clinched home court advantage, which basically means they get more home games than the other team does. Anyway, the number 4 seed right now is Dallas, but they could also switch with Golden State and they could also drop potentially. Number 5 is the Denver Nuggets. Number 6 is the Utah Jazz. And then those are the 6 right now for the cutoff of the playoffs. Those are the 6. Those 1 through 6 are making the playoffs for sure. They don't have to worry about the play-in tournament. So now here comes the play-in tournament seeds, 7 through 10. The 7th seed in the East, the 7th seed in the West is Minnesota, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Number 8 is the LA Clippers. Number 9 is the New Orleans Pelicans. And number 10 is the San Antonio Spurs. So these 4 teams are going to be competing for the final 2 spots in the playoffs. What will happen with those 4 teams? We will see. But it is guaranteed that it is going to be these 4 teams headed into the play-in tournament. Their seeding could potentially change. San Antonio could be the 9 seed potentially. LA could also drop to the 9. New Orleans could go up to the 8, etc., etc. There's a lot of flux in terms of the seeding of the play-in tournament, but those 4 teams, Minnesota, LA, the Clippers, the LA Clippers, New Orleans Pelicans, and the San Antonio Spurs are going to be the 4 play-in teams for the Western Conference. Just maybe in different seeding order than we may expect right now as of Wednesday. Then in the East, the number 1 seed of the East is locked up and good to go. The Miami Heat will be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. The number 2 seed will be the Boston Celtics. I believe they're also locked up too. Number 3 as of right now, but could change potentially, is Milwaukee. Number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers. Number 5 is the Chicago Bulls. And number 6 are the Toronto Raptors. So those are the 6 seeds right now that are locked in for the playoffs. They could potentially, move up or down, and potentially Toronto could actually move into this play-in tournament stage that we're about to talk about right now for the East. So the top 6, Miami, Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Toronto. Then there's 7 through 10, which is Cleveland. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the 7 seed right now. The Atlanta Hawks are the 8 seed. The 9 seed is Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets, and the number 10 seed is the Brooklyn Nets. So those are the 4 seeds right now that are competing for the play-in tournament. But the thing is, the seeding in the East is such that Toronto could potentially drop into that 7th spot and compete in the play-in tournament, and Cleveland could potentially move up into the 6th spot and clinch a playoff spot without having to compete in the play-in tournament. Okay, so there's some variation with the seeding, and unfortunately, I can't give you guys full clarity on what the seeding is going to look like when it comes to the playoffs. I'm doing the best I can, because of the fact that the NBA regular season hasn't ended, and a couple games here and there could change the seeding and could potentially change what we're looking at in terms of the big playoff picture. But let's talk storylines, right? We talk numbers, we talk the rankings, whatever. That shit doesn't matter. What do I need to know right now as a casual NBA fan that's trying to impress my significant other? Okay, here is what you need to know right now. The biggest storyline of this year's NBA playoffs is that the fact is that there are out of all of the 16 teams that will compete in the NBA playoffs, there's about 12 or 13, there's about 10 or 11 that have a good case and a good argument to win an NBA championship right now. In my opinion, I think there are a lot of teams in the NBA. It's in the NBA playoffs right now. It's the most wide open it's been in a while, and there isn't a lot of dynastic powers that are going to continue to advance. I would say right now that the best teams, quote unquote, in the NBA are the Phoenix Suns. And I would say that they are considerably right now the best team in the league, is what I would describe. They're going to be a tough out. They're deep. They have a lot of stars on their team, et cetera, et cetera. But that we don't have to get into the intricacies of basketball. So the main storyline in this year's playoffs is there's about 10 teams that can potentially pull off a championship. So this year, if you are any team, you just want to get into the dance, because if you get into the dance, you're giving yourself an opportunity to potentially win a series. And you never know what happens if your team gets hot and goes on a playoff run. Then you could potentially find yourself in a position to win a championship, which was something that maybe you weren't even thinking about. So the fact is, there are a lot of teams that can win a championship here in this year's playoff race. Okay, what are the storylines? What are the other storylines that are going on? One of the other major storylines is that this playoffs can honestly be defined as the changing of the guard playoffs in a lot of ways. If you look at a lot of the teams in both the West and the East, a lot of them are filled with one common theme, and that's younger players, younger durable players. The older players like LeBron James and Kevin Durant. LeBron James was actually just eliminated from the playoffs yesterday with the Lakers, and Kevin Durant is playing for the Brooklyn Nets, which are competing for a play-in tournament spot, which means that you could potentially go through the playoffs without seeing quote unquote two of the best 5 players in the NBA. That's pretty crazy. So now you're going to get to see younger stars. So the younger stars are going to be the storyline of this playoffs. The younger people who are, in their 20s, their mid 20s, who are coming up. This playoffs is the playoffs of the young. And some of the younger players that maybe you guys need to look at, and I'm just suggesting a few, are Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton on Phoenix, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane in Memphis, Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga on the Warriors. I just put that in there because I'm plugging. Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson on Dallas. Nikola Jokic on the Denver Nuggets. Donovan Mitchell on the Jazz. That's just the West. And in the East, you can look at guys like Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo for the Miami Heat, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown for the Boston Celtics, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who won an NBA championship with Milwaukee last year, Philadelphia. Some of the young guys that could potentially you could look at are Tyrese Maxey and what's the other guy's name? I'm forgetting, man. But and James Harden is on Philadelphia. He's a little bit older, but he's kind of in that sort of trying to win a championship type vibe. Chicago's got a guy by the name of Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, who they're older, but they're still kind of in that. So, but they have young guards. They have a young guard by the name of Zach LaVine, who's absolutely electric to watch. Toronto has a lot of young pieces, and then they have Pascal Siakam as well, who's also kind of a younger guy. Cleveland, Jarrett Allen on Cleveland. You get the idea. There's a lot of young players in this year's playoffs that could potentially make some noise, and this is the year for the young guns. This isn't the year for LeBron James and Kevin Durant and the classic NBA storylines that we've seen for a while. This is the year of the young ones, and that is the coolest part of this year's playoffs. The injection of youth. And I think one of the things that probably should have told us that this was going to happen was Phoenix and Milwaukee last year, which reflected that the NBA has basically moved on from the old guard in a lot of senses, because Phoenix last year was relatively the same team that it is now. Yes, they have a veteran point guard in Chris Paul, but they have a young core in Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, as well as Mikal Bridges and Cameron Payne. And as well as Milwaukee, that's got Giannis and Chris Middleton. They're 2 young stars, and they're also surrounded by a bunch of other younger depth pieces as well. So that happened last year, and now we're seeing the youth come into play as well this year. Another storyline heading into the playoffs, though, besides the youth, is the fact that several stars are injured right now. So there are a lot of star players, a lot of these old guard players that are getting injured. Guys like Ben Simmons, Kawhi Leonard, and other stars whose presence, quite frankly, would greatly help the teams that they're on. But unfortunately, they can't participate in the playoffs due to some pretty severe injuries that they're facing, or they may come back potentially if their teams advance or later into the playoffs. This is the point in the NBA season where like all the stars are racing to rehab before the playoffs. You got guys like Steph and Morant and Ja Morant, who's that star young guard I talked about in Memphis, who are just racing to get their injuries rehabbed so that they're good to go for game 1 of the first round. And so it's mass injury updates all around right now for the NBA. And so if your significant other is an NBA fan, they will be checking and they have a player that's on injured reserve, but it's looking to potentially come back for the playoffs. They're probably refreshing their phone every so often just to see some injury updates in there. Okay. What is going on in the playoffs? What is the structure of the playoffs? Let me explain the structure real quick. I know this topic went on a while, but I wanted to really just break down what's going on and what you guys need to know for the playoffs. Anyway, structure of the playoffs right now. 7 games through the entire way. This isn't like baseball where it goes from 3 games in the first round to 5 to eventually 7. This is 7 games the entire way. So 7-game series the entire way. First team to win 4 games wins the series and moves on to the next round. The play-in, like I discussed earlier, is going to be pretty interesting because on the East, you have a team like Brooklyn that's got guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that could potentially have enough firepower to make a run and grab one of those final two seeds, which could mean potentially upsetting a Miami or a Boston in the first round, which are much younger teams, like I discussed earlier. So there is some interesting sides at play, particularly in the Eastern Conference. There are a lot of what ifs in the air right now in terms of seeding and all of that. And once the seeding gets locked in, there's going to be more clear storylines. But it's shaping up to be a really exciting couple months of basketball, a really exciting postseason with a lot of new stars and a lot of new potential storylines to keep in touch with. I promise you, I will keep you guys updated on what's going on with the NBA playoffs. This is like my life. I love the playoffs. I think the NBA playoffs, I think basketball playoffs hit different. I know the NFL playoffs are crazy good. But the NBA playoffs are another level of intense. And if you're a huge NBA fan, like you love the playoffs. This is the time of year that you want to be into basketball because it's so exciting and it's so cool. And I didn't talk about the Warriors that much. I told you, but I'm hoping the best for them. They're the 3 seed right now because they're my team and we want them to see them do well. Bay Area, born and raised. So we're praying for them too. If you're not praying for them and you're listening to my podcast, then sucks. But yeah, there is a lot of storylines. I didn't even cover a lot of the storylines like within team to team. If you wanted me to do a whole episode on that, I can do that as well. Let me know. But yeah, that's the basics. Breaking down the NBA playoffs so that your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your partner doesn't have to explain it to you when you're sitting there on the couch asking all the questions when they're trying to watch their team. So impress them with maybe a little bit of knowledge that you have here. Okay, that's all I have with this topic. Let's move on because we got another topic I want to talk about. And I think this one might be a little bit more interesting for some people. This one's going to be a little quicker, but this one might be a lot more interesting for a lot of people because I really wanted to talk about, we talked a little bit about St. Peter's on the last episode, and we talked about how they had such a beautiful underdog story and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight and all of these things. But meanwhile, while the national championship was happening on Monday, it just totally glossed over everybody's head, really, that the fact that the women also had an NCAA tournament and that UConn and South Carolina dueled it out on Sunday, the day before, and South Carolina and Aaliyah Boston came out on top and won the NCAA tournament for women's basketball. Women's college basketball is actually so competitive and it's so fun to watch. The players are really freaking good. They can play the game at a very high level. And it's a college sports tournament that doesn't get talked about at all, really a lot. It's kind of a subculture within college basketball, but like I said earlier, it's truly basketball played at a very high level and basketball in kind of a more pure form. I was discussing this with a friend a couple years ago, and she was telling me, she's like, if you watch women's basketball, the way that they construct plays and they run sets and they run like their system is very it's much more basketball fundamentally oriented rather than like men's basketball and like even in college and in the pros, which is much more iso ball and much more like individual, like one-on-one matchups. And women's basketball is more of a team oriented sport. And I think in watching the little bit of women's basketball that I have noticed that pattern really come to life, which is kind of cool. But anyway, that's the sport of it. But let's talk about some of these athletes, man, because there have been so many awesome WNBA athletes who have come through this college tournament and play basketball, like I said, at this different style and this different level. And I honestly, I'm going to say this right now. I would watch a lot more WNBA basketball. I would. I don't right now. If there was a team in my area, 100%, I would be watching Bay Area WNBA basketball. Freaking 100%. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I would watch a lot of WNBA basketball if there was a Bay Area team. I'm just saying, WNBA, where's the Bay Area team at? Oakland, San Francisco. We could use one. We could freaking use one, and I would be their first fan. I can't honestly, like me personally, as an individual, can't really get into a sport without me having a rooting interest in something. And to have a rooting interest for me, there's got to be a connection. And so the only way there would really be a connection for me is if I really liked a player and just like watch that team and I would just be a fan of that team, or if it was in the location. And I would love there to be a Bay WNBA team. And the WNBA in general is like a very growing sport. So I would love to see there be more teams across the country. And hopefully the popularity continues to go up. That would be my hope. But some of my favorite lady ballers, but lady ballers. I guess what's a good term for it? I guess some of my favorite female ballers are like these are my favorites. Like these are the ones like I've been following for a while and I really like. I really like Paige Beckers. I love the way she plays basketball. I think they call her the female Steph. She's kind of like it. She can just pull up from 50 feet and drill shots. Like she's super fun. She plays with like a swagger to her that's hella fun. Like she just has that contagious energy when she's on the court. She's a flashy like guard, and I just like I love watching her play. She's a lot of fun. Sabrina Ionescu, who's more of like that small forward, like she's more of a wing. For those of you that are familiar with basketball, so it's not a lot of like ball handling or any of that, but it's like getting down. Like for her, it's like finding those mid range jumpers. She played like facilitating the basketball, and she does it really well and really effectively. I've been watching her since Oregon. So definitely go check out Paige Beckers and Sabrina Ionescu if you're like into basketball at all. And Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is this guard from Iowa. She and Paige Beckers played in the Sweet 16 last year for the NCAA tournament. Caitlin Clark is a shooter too. I love watching shooters. Like she can shoot the fucking ball really well. I don't know if Iowa did that great this year, but Caitlin Clark had a hell of a season. I think she averaged like she had a good season from what I saw. But yeah, she's a shooter as well. So I don't know. I like watching flash. Like I feel like everybody's got a type for basketball players and just players in general. And my type for basketball players is flashy point guards or flashy guards in general. I just like watching like beautiful dimes. That could come off so wrong based on what we're talking about right now. But I mean, just like beautiful passes, just 3-point shots from 50 feet out. Like I like the splash. That's what I like. And so I'm a big guard guy when it comes to who I like. Even though Sabrina Ionescu isn't a guard, she's a wing player, but she's a lot of fun. But here's the thing, though. This is something I've noticed actually. Is my question is that why do like in the WNBA, one of the main rules actually for the WNBA is that these women have to stay in school for at least 4 years in order for them to compete professionally, or they have to be 4 years removed from high school. And so my question is like, why? Why can men get out of it after a year? And like men, in college basketball for guys, like there are guys that can just declare after the NBA draft as soon as they lose in the NCAA tournament. Like they have no obligation to go back to school. They lose in the NCAA tournament. Oh, time to move on with my basketball career and go to the pros. If you're that talented, like Paige Beckers is extremely talented. Like she was the number one. I think she was like the number one recruit in her class out of high school for women. Like if she was a guy, like she would have gone to Duke, played for a year, and probably been pro right now. She would have been pro. This would have been her rookie year this year in the league if she was a guy. But the fact is, she's a girl, so she's got to stay in school for 4 years and then go to the draft, where she will probably most likely in all aspects be the number one overall pick. But and the same thing with Sabrina too. Like Sabrina Ionescu was stuck in college for 4 years, and arguably, I mean, after her, I think her draft stock almost decreased. TBH. Because I think she would have got number one after her junior year, but she went 2 her senior year. But I mean, that doesn't matter. She still went top of the draft. And even people like Cameron Brink, who's at Stanford, who led them to a Final Four run, and Aaliyah Boston, who are like great basketball players who could arguably, go to the WNBA right now and play at a pretty high level, are basically forced to stay at school longer than they should, which is a stupid rule. Like, why can't Paige Beckers at the age of 20 play in the WNBA? She could probably play at a high level. She could. I mean, does it help their development? Is there like scientific studies on this? I don't think so. I think it's just the fact that like these rules were probably written a while ago, and the WNBA isn't that popular a sport, so it doesn't get talked about as much. But that's what we're here to do. Let's talk about it. It's just kind of a weird rule. But listen, women's basketball is a really cool sport. I don't watch a lot of it personally, like I said, but I really like watching Beckers and Clark and Ionescu when she was there too. I watch a little bit of the New York Liberty games because that's where Sabrina plays as well. But that being said, I also I've been hearing things about Cameron Brink from Stanford. I've also been hearing the fact she's like the goddaughter of Del Curry, apparently. I had no idea. And on top of all of that, like she's basically like family with the Currys. So I guess that means I'm her biggest fan now. I guess I'm Cameron Brink's biggest fan because I love the Currys. No. But hey, Hey, if she be getting that private coaching from Steph, though, I'm just saying I may have to support. But Sabrina and Steph are actually like friends too, because Sabrina's from the Bay Area, which is even cooler. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. Like in terms of in terms of a pure viewership perspective, like the female NCAA is really cool because you have that familiarity and that familiar aspect of things with like, you know, the same players coming back and you watching that same team over and over again for 4 years and then them graduating and moving on to the league. So you get very familiar, I guess, with lineups and the team if you're like a really big fan of them. So I could see that. Paige Becker's, I mean, don't feel bad if she's not making any money because Paige Becker's making a shit ton of money. I mean, this whole like endorsement deal with colleges, like which we talked about actually on episode 1, funny enough. Paige Becker's making like I think 70 or 80K a year just off her name, or even more probably. Just like being like she has like merch that says like Paige Buckets on it. Like she's got plenty of money. Like don't worry about Paige Becker's or any of the top WNBA or top potential WNBA draft picks because they're making plenty of money in college. So it benefited them the most, really, that whole rule. But WNBA and female college basketball is really just an underbelly kind of basketball right now as a whole. And so it's going to be really exciting to see how this culture grows and how the WNBA and all of these things grow before our very eyes because it is a growing sport. And the fact is, like, we're in an era where things are growing and things are changing. So going to be exciting to see how this all pans out. But yes, female March Madness did happen too, and I just wanted to acknowledge that before we move on because we got 3 more topics left. And I want to stay in detail with those because first class, and that transition probably made no sense to anybody that doesn't know about the GLAM. Yeah, glamorous, baby. For those of you that do know, you know exactly who we're talking about here on this first segment of the Changavi Show for pop culture. We're talking about Jack Harlow because Jack Harlow, this is probably a name that most of you have heard, not just me, not just because of me, but because of the fact that he is probably one of the most trending musicians in the world right now. And if you don't know who Jack Harlow is, you're definitely tripping, or you just don't listen to rap, which is cool too. So let me educate you. So I believe that Jack Harlow has arrived on the musical stage. And I think that is the most fair take. And I think that's just the most like average take that you could give. So let's talk about Jack Harlow for a second. I talked a little bit about him on the after show, had a little bit of fun singing his snippet, talking about how he's just, you know, unifying generations together and all of these things. But typically in hip hop, there's only really been space for one white rapper. And typically, for a lot of people, the white rappers in general within the hip hop and the rap space are looked down upon. They're looked at as, you know, cultural appropriators, people who are breaking the space, people who are breaking the art form that is reserved for the African American community. I disagree with that form of thinking. I think hip hop is something that can be inclusive of everybody, but you know, there are people out there that do think in hip hop purity. So Jack Harlow has done something that really not a lot of white people can do or have done in the first place. And the fact is, he is a white dude who has taken over hip hop. Okay. Look, obviously he's not the number one. Like, I wouldn't call him the number one rapper of all time or like any of that stuff. Like, we can't say that. That's an overreach at this point. He's still 24. He's got a bunch more music to release. But I think we can fairly say this. I think we can fairly say that Jack Harlow has officially reached the conversation where he can be spoken with in the same breath as some of the best mainstream rappers right now in the game. I think he's reached that level of the conversation. I think his work is really good. I think his music is fun. It's a different vibe than maybe a J. Cole or a Kendrick Lamar that's a little bit deeper and talks about much deeper, more emotional themes. But I would say that Jack Harlow has reached this level where we can talk about him in that breath of some of the really, really good rappers because they are giving him recognition. Kanye West just shouted this man out on his Instagram. And I'm not saying all of this because of that snippet that came out and has gone viral on TikTok and everyone's vibing to it. It's a great snippet. It's a great song. It seems like it's going to be great. It's coming out tomorrow. I will let you know my thoughts. Um, but I'm not saying it that it's just because of the snippet. I'm saying this because of who Jack Harlow is as a person. I think who Jack Harlow is as a person, it comes across as who he is as an artist, and it makes people more endearing to the fact that he is white and that he is all of these things. So let me explain to you like what I feel, why I feel that Jack Harlow is really close to the top of the rap game right now. I think the thing that makes Jack Harlow, in my opinion, endearing to not only us, the fans, but the rappers in the game is that at his core, from everything publicly presented to me at least, Jack Harlow has appeared to be a fan. He's a fan at heart, in his soul. He is a fan of hip hop. He's a fan of rap. He's a fan of all of these things. You hear him talk about it in interviews. You see who he collaborates with on his music. He's collaborating with people that this guy was probably listening to in his headphones in 7th grade in his classroom. A similar experience that all of us have had who listen to rap. So above all, this man is a fan of the rap and he's a fan of the artists that make up the game. And so he's smiling and having a great time, like collaborating because he's like, dude, I'm living my dream. I'm literally talking to people. Like I can call J. Cole my colleague when I was probably, 6 years ago doing homework and listening to him over my shitty laptop speakers, right? That is what makes him endearing. He's just joyful to be there. And the fact is, like, rap and hip hop a lot of times it's about ego and it's about swag and it's about who has more shit and who has more money and who's got more bitches and all of these things. And Jack Harlow, yes, he's got ego and he's got a little bit of swagger for sure in his rap and his bars and all of that. But there's a personality behind that. And the personality of Jack is, like I said, someone who's a fan and someone who's just appreciative and enjoying his opportunity. And so that's what makes him the guy in my eyes. That's why I really have grown to respect him a lot. And, people can fucking call him a cultural appropriator and all these things, and fuck them. I don't think he is. I'd say the man is just a hardworking kid, like most of America is trying to do with their respective career or their respective dreams, and he made it. And that's dope. And listen, of course, there's so many other rappers out there that do awesome stuff. I'm not just trying to say Jack Harlow is the only one who's a fan of rap, but Jack definitely has that special charm about him for sure that not a lot of other people have. And let's take out the elephant in the room because every single girl I talk to about Jack Harlow, the first words out of their mouth are, "Oh my God, Jack is so hot. He's super hot. Jack is super hot." And that's what Jack Harlow is. According to a lot of people, he's hot. And so that helps him too. Listen, I don't think this man is hot. Is it just me? Like, I don't think he's like, I don't see like the super attractive white boy feel, right? Like, I mean, he's just a dude. Like, this is no disrespect to Harlow. I just went on a 10-minute soliloquy about how I love the man, but like, is he like that good looking? Like, can the girls like tell me what the appeal is? And so he looks like freaking Ryan from high school, in my opinion. Like, he just looks like the average white dude. Shout out to Ryan from high school, by the way. You probably, all my high school friends probably know exactly who I'm talking about. But but like he's just kind of like a middle of the road white dude, in my opinion. I don't know. That's my opinion though. I could understand if you gave me a detailed argument as to why he's good looking. I would understand that. But okay. Besides the looks, right? I think where the attraction comes from is this idea that he's so cool. He's just got this swag about him. He's hot shit now. He's got the personality and he's a smooth talker. He is a smooth talker. I mean, I saw this shit with Saweetie. Like there's, this chicken shop day with Amelia DeMoldenberg is so funny. He's very smooth with women from what I've seen publicly at least. And I think Jack in that department has sold a lot of his girl fans for sure. And that's great. So, but I'm not a girl, so I can't say much. I can't talk about his looks. I can't talk about his attraction. I can't talk about any of that. So I'm not going to, continue to discuss that matter. But looks aside, okay, why is Jack Harlow so relatable? Why? Like we still haven't dug into that fundamental question, right? We got to the fact he's a fan. We got to the fact that he's hot and girls like him, and maybe something to do with the fact that he's swaggy and fun and all these things. But why is Jack Harlow relatable? And then I was like doing a deep dive into Harlow's like personality and his upbringing and all of these things. Jack Harlow's the average white kid that you went to school with. That's why everybody likes him. He's the white kid from an average American family raised on a horse farm. His parents are named Maggie and Brian. There's probably 18,000 couples in the United States of America, Maggie and Brian, right? Like, shout out to Maggie and Brian, by the way. His family looks like the family that goes on Starbucks runs every day. They just look like the normal freaking American family. He's got a younger brother. My point is, like, the Harlow family and Jack Harlow is just an average freaking family. They're just average. And I think that's like Jack Harlow just being average makes all of us be like, yo, wait, I went to high school with someone like that. He could do it. And if he could do it, I saw how average he was at life. I could do it if I work really hard. And that, and like seeing yourself or seeing aspects of yourself within a person is what makes the situation like, is what makes the person that much more relatable. I'm not saying Jack Harlow's average by any means. He's a great rapper and he's proven that like he can create a quality song. I'm not saying his songs are average by, like I said, I'm not saying his songs are average, but I'm saying that he's very he's just very relatable, and that is the core of who Harlow is as a person. Like J. Cole and Kanye and Logic and Nas and Ice Cube, they all have great, like they storytell about their experiences in life so well, right? And that is relatable to a certain segment of the population, right? Growing up in the hood and having, selling crack to their, yeah, I'm obviously, like, this is Logic in particular, but like selling crack to his dad, getting abused by his mom, with Cole, like growing up in a rough neighborhood, with Kanye, like growing up to a single mom. Like, these are experiences that can really resonate with people who have had those niche experiences, right? They've grown up in the streets. All of these things. Like, there's so many rappers like that who rap about those emotional experiences and they make beautiful music. I'm not saying that is incorrect, but Jack Harlow isn't from the streets, right? Because let's be real, there's a lot of Americans out there. Most of the people who listen to rap right now are suburban teenagers driving around in Seven Springs in Cupertino. Those are the people that are listening to rap. And Jack Harlow isn't from the streets. He's just a kid who went to a normal high school, who was raised on a fucking farm, and he has from a middle class family, and he's a kid in his 20s living his dream, calling Drake his colleague. That is the truth. That is the truth. And so it's different because he gets this fair share of pushback, because he's white and he may have grown up middle to upper class and all of these things. But he's a star. And now he's starting to find his voice a little bit, and that personality's coming out. And so now it's, all coming out. And a lot of people have said for a while that Jack Harlow is a fad rapper and fad rapper. Like, he's a fad, like fidget spinners or silly bands rapper. I want to make that clear. Someone that would have had like the one hit song, what's poppin'? And then he just dipped like Fetty Wap did, or like Designer, or like Broccoli, or like Dram, sorry, DRAM. Not Broccoli. Broccoli's a song. But I'm here to tell you that Jack Harlow is going to be a mainstay. I mean, just the way that people like this guy, just the way that people like his music, just the way that he's consistently been able to produce for the last couple of years here. It's not a lot of deep emotional music. It's a lot of like fun bars. It's very simple. You can groove to it. You can vibe to it. You can sing it. It's just catchy music. It's fun. But I want to see him really try to take an emotional look. I think that would be like his next step up, in my opinion, as a rapper. Like, someone who takes like a deep look at life, looks at emotions, all of these things. He's done it before. He's got songs that I really enjoy, like River Road and Baxter Avenue and Rendezvous, where he really does talk a lot about his life and does a really good job with those bars, and really and does a good job with that. Once May Comes too. He's got a lot of bars in those songs that are just more emotional and more talking about his life, which is, I think, is cool. Keep It Light is one of my favorite Harlow songs too, and that's like a very, smooth and mellow song that talks about his relationship with the industry and just friends in general. And I think it's cool. I think he talks about very relatable things, and I would like to see him do more of that. see how he can grow in that aspect of rap, because he can make the party songs. We all know that. He's very, very good at that. So hopefully, I mean, this album with, Nail Tech and fucking First Class seems like it's going to be a very party-esque album. There may be a couple songs of emotion and talking about that type of stuff, but I'm thinking it's going to be more of what we've seen in the past. But that's my challenge. If Jack Harlow were to ever see this, give me an album where you're talking about your existence, or you're talking about issues, or you have a concept for an album that's more based on your existence as a human, like your existence. And I understand if you don't want to make that type of music, you're like, fuck you, Anuj. Why would I make that music? Like, that's just not my vibe, and that's fair. But I think that would be the way that would really show people that you can rap about a variety of things. And that could get you into like the Drake and the J. Cole conversation at that point. But for now, you're still having a successful career. You're on fire. So who am I to talk? I'm just a kid in his fucking parents' house at 12:23 in the morning talking about your career, hoping to get famous off this clip. But listen, Jack Harlow is great. And I just think there's a lot more to his career than people let on. And so I just wanted to touch on all of those things. But anyway, listen, we're gonna transition from Jack Harlow and why he's so relatable and why he's hot. Which, by the way, please feel free to DM me as to why you think Jack Harlow is attractive. I don't personally see it, but if you do, like, give me the explanation, give me the deets. I would love to hear it. Let's talk about Bridgerton, right? Let's go from rap to TV real quick, because these are two very different things. And Bridgerton is very different than anything I've really talked about for a while. So let's talk about Bridgerton for a second, because this is the show that has thrown me for the fucking loop-de-loop of the loop-de-loop. This, I have no idea how to feel. It's confusingly good, boring, and intriguing all at the same time. I have no idea what I've gotten myself into. I've watched like 5 episodes of Bridgerton, and it's great. It's pretty good. It's not great. It's pretty good. And I haven't gotten to the second season. So for those of you that are expecting me to talk about the Sharmas and the South Asian representation that's going on within Bridgerton, no, I'm not doing that today. So sorry to my woke police. We're not doing that. Because I'm not that into the show, and I haven't even gotten to the fact that there's a South Asian character. That's just been spoiled for me based on like all the press I've been seeing, at least on my news feeds and all that. So I will talk about that at some point when I get to the point where I finish maybe season 2 of Bridgerton. I just feel like I can't talk about something I haven't seen, so I shouldn't comment on it. But this show is really interesting. I really find Bridgerton to be like a puzzle of sorts, because it's not your typical teen drama, right? It's not your typical Gossip Girl. It's not your fucking One Tree Hill. It's not Grey's Anatomy. It's just not like drama like that. But it's also got those teen drama elements, right? Like Lady Whistledown, who's kind of like that Gossip Girl type figure. But it's a much more nuanced teen drama that's a little bit different in a lot of ways. And I like it. I like the take that they went for with it. I really like also, I was reading some press about Bridgerton earlier, and I like how they've called the show, rather than just like they've kind of taken the show in a different direction, because for those of you that know, Bridgerton takes place in the Regency era of England, but it's not a historical period piece. It's not all about the environment that the lords and the duchess and the dukes grew up in the royal family and like the high society that's been done before, right? Those shows have been done before. That's called the Tudors. That's called the fucking even Downton Abbey, even though it's a little bit more modern. But Downton Abbey, freaking, there's shows on shows on shows that have been done about the British royals. Who cares? Why do we want to see another one? But the thing is, what's so cool about Bridgerton is it's different. It's different because they don't call it a historical period piece. They call it a reimagination of the historical world. So they integrate elements of modern society and they integrate it within this historical period that is the Regency era. So there are not African Americans, I guess, British Africans that are playing high profile king, queen, duchess, duke roles. And you have people of color that are integrated into the society. And it's a very different look, I would say, as a society than probably a Bridgerton historical period piece would be. A Bridgerton historical period piece would be very white, right? It would be very white dominated with maybe occasional African American servants. But you're seeing a lot of black characters reach predominant roles on Bridgerton. You're seeing a lot of people of color reach predominant big roles on Bridgerton. And it's kind of interesting to see, like, in terms of the diversity aspect of things. And I really like what they've done. I thought originally when I first saw like the first 5 minutes of the first episode, I was like, this is literally just Gossip Girl in the 1860s. I was so mad. I was like, this is with this lady whistle down stuff. I was like, oh my God, like this is just gonna be terrible. Like this, I know exactly where this is going. But Lady Whistledown kind of takes a step back, really, after episode 1, and you don't really hear a lot from her throughout the show. You'll hear like occasional narration, but that's fine. Like I don't really care. It's very focused on these characters and their complicated family dynamics and these problems. And it's cool because Bridgerton, the way that they construct their characters is that the characters are constricted within these parameters of they're like modern characters in that, like, these are characters that would, like, I could see Daphne Bridgerton and the Duke of Hastings like in, like, down the street, like they would fit into modern society, but yet they also have this tremendous I don't even know how to describe it. They have this like tremendous constraint about them that they need to fit into the societal standards that are put in front of them based on these rules of the Regency era. And so the show sticks to the rules of the Regency era, but it allows their characters kind of modern flair to it, which makes it relatable to the audience. And I really like the way that they've done that. And honestly, I don't hate a main character on the show. Like, I like the Duke of Hastings. I think he's cool. I like Daphne. I think Daphne Bridgerton's a lot of fun. The brothers are, they're annoying, but they're also fun. And so it balances like the historical boundaries with this innocence. And I think the theme that Bridgerton does better than any show that I've really seen in a while. I think the theme that they do the best is sex. And you probably heard sex and turn this off if you're an auntie or an uncle. You're like, sex? He's talking about sex. What is wrong with him? Huh? Okay. All right. Listen, aunties, uncles, everybody, older people, let's chill. Let's chill. I'm talking about sex. Yes. I'm not going to talk about. Yes, we're going to talk about sex within the context of Bridgerton. I made that awkward on purpose. I don't know why I did that. But when it comes to sex on Bridgerton, it's seen very heavily throughout the show. There are a lot of intimate scenes. There are a lot of scenes of that type of nature. But the way that the writers handle it is so phenomenal. It's so good. Like the what's it called? Like, yeah, like I'd say in the first, like, because I've only gotten through about 6 episodes of the show, so you can tell me if that changes and if this motif changes. But the first 3-4 episodes are like whatever, right? It's just like normal hookups, like cool, blah blah blah. But I think like sex when it comes to Daphne and the Duke of Hastings, like with her, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the show, by the way, like Daphne's innocence compiled with like the Duke's kind of patience. And I just thought it was like a very refreshing take on something within society that's a taboo, but also at the same time, like showed their modern characters off. And I thought that was really cool. And I feel like a lot of shows on TV in general don't handle love and sex well at all. They like corrupt it in a lot of senses. Like I think Euphoria really teeters that line. Like I love Euphoria and it's great, but they could handle the love and sex part a little better. And in my opinion, and I feel like Bridgerton does the opposite. I feel like Bridgerton does a really good job of showing like what is actual, like legitimate, just arranged love. And I think what's weird about this is I've seen the show is very popular with a lot of Indian people, and I'm like, why? It's very clear why the show is popular with Indian people. It is like in a lot of ways allegorical to arranged marriage. And I like the family dynamics. Like I love the way they've written it. It's very relatable. It's definitely traditional. It's got a very traditional feel to it, and you see those historical boundaries. Obviously, it's a show that takes place in the Regency era of Britain, but I feel like there is a lot of things that modern audiences relate to when it comes to these characters. And I like that. I like that a lot. The first few episodes of Bridgerton, though, they weren't my type. They were a little boring. They moved kind of slow, but I feel like if you get through those downs early on, it really starts to pick up around episode 4. That's when the show, the whole plot, all the characters, all of these things really start to come together, and then you start to kind of get deeper and deeper into what the good parts of the show, which is where you want to be. That being said, though, I have not finished the show, so it could get terribly shitty in the next few episodes. I would not be surprised because I've seen shows like that, which have a good middle and they have the kind of so-so beginning, a good middle, and a terrible ending. But But we'll see. I'm still halfway through the first season. Maybe at some point I'll come back on here and give you my little update as to how I feel. And I may call Bridgerton the worst show ever. I don't know. But I don't think that'll honestly be the case. This show has surprised me a lot. It has. It's definitely a very different show. It's got a refreshing take on a lot of issues. And I think if you guys are open to a different sort and a different style of show, I think Bridgerton might be the show for you. So definitely check it out. It's on Netflix. 2 seasons are out, so it should be available. It's definitely not a quick binge, in my opinion. I think this is a show like you got to take your time with. The episodes are like 57 to like an hour 10 long, so they're kind of longer episodes. But it definitely is worth it, and the show does pick up after the first couple episodes. So stick with it. I'm telling you this. I've seen Bridgerton be pegged as like a girl show. Not at all. If you're a guy and you like this show, I don't blame you. It's a great show. It has a lot of redeeming qualities to it, and it's been a cool ride so far. So I'm excited to kind of finish it and give you my full thoughts maybe at some point on an after show or something. But I really do like the historical reimagination that they're going for, because it's a trend that hopefully we get to see in some other shows as well. Yeah, and maybe like some other creative plot lines are developed and whatnot at some point with that whole idea of things. So let's see how it all kind of develops and comes together. Okay, I got one more topic to get through, and then we're gonna complete this. We're gonna complete the Changavi show. Listen, the news topic of the day. It's not really going to be a news topic. More so is it's going to be a kind of history topic / maybe news / historical trends topic, I guess. I want to talk a little bit about the first lady position in the White House, right? We talked a little bit about the ladies with Bridgerton. Let's transition from the ladies of England to the ladies of America, right? First ladies. It's a position that we kind of just mention in afterthought a lot of the time when it comes to politics, when it comes to the White House, when it comes to just everything in general. But we don't really know what the hell they do. They just kind of get elected. They're just kind of like along for the ride, is kind of the American narrative when it comes to the first lady. They're like, oh, okay, they're just there, and we're just gonna move on. Like they exist. That's it. That is it. And we typically don't care unless they're in the media for doing something bad, or quote unquote scandalous, right? With like Hillary Clinton, like no one really cared about her until Lewinsky popped up, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Hillary, how are you feeling? Not great." Anyway, listen, what the hell do these people do? What the hell do first ladies do? So let's talk basics of the first lady position. Okay. This was like just a complete question I had in my head. I was like, what the hell is the first lady? Like, what is going on with the first lady? Do they just sit there when their husband is in office? Are we going to see a first gentleman one day? Like, what is going on with this whole thing? Okay. So usually, let's talk basics for the first lady. For those of you that don't even know what the first lady is, usually the first lady is referred to as the wife of the president. That is their official title when they enter the White House. They, at a certain point in time, they were considered to be the most famous woman in America back when the president had that much influence. But I bet you right now, there are 50% of Americans who cannot name who the first lady of the United States is right now. I'll tell you right now, her name is Jill Biden. Now you know. Jill, not Joe. But listen, for the most part, the role of the first lady is filled by spouses, partners, significant others, whatever you want to call it. And there have actually been a few occasions where there has been non-spouses as well. So there's one situation with Thomas Jefferson, whose wife died way before he got elected to become president. And so his daughter took over the first lady role, and she was assisted by another later first lady by the name of Dolly Madison, who served as first lady under James Madison. So, for the most part, when the first lady role was initially brought to perspective, like many things in America, when it came to women, it was a ceremonial role in the White House for the most part. Basically, people called you the social chair. You were the social chair of the White House fraternity. That's essentially what the first lady role was way back in the day. You were organizing parties, you were organizing galas, events, all of that stuff. You were a rich housewife. That was essentially what the role meant. You were called the quote official hostess of the White House, and you were to organize all the balls and the various events that took place there and in the nation's capital, all of these things. So with the first few presidents, that was primarily their role. It was social, and so they would continue a lot of that rich British aristocratic nature. of just, balls and, very eloquent dances and parties and all of that stuff. So for the most part, that's what was going on in our early part of our country's history. The first ladies remained kind of quiet when it came to their political views, when it came to their decisions politically, and they just kind of they were just kind of the social people. They were the ones who kept the relationships up with people and all of those things and all that good stuff. And they kind of kept by their husband's side and hung out all day, kind of like what women were originally held to in this country based on patriarchal standards. Then the role kind of started to shift in the mid 1800s because you had first ladies like Mary Todd Lincoln, who were pretty well known and very outspoken. And Mary Todd Lincoln, unfortunately, was caught in a lot of tragedy because she did lose her son. I believe his name's Willie. They lost him in 1862, but she was known for like throwing like huge parties, extravagant parties, being very outspoken about her political views. And a lot of people in the South, because Mary Todd Lincoln is from the South, thought that she betrayed her Southern roots and was kind of one of these first ladies uh, to be, and she was one of the first ladies to really be seen in that national light because there was, I mean, the fucking half the nation hated her, right? They were the Confederate States of America. They're like, what the hell? Like she's just with Abraham Lincoln now. Like this is BS. So she kind of really brought the role to light at a certain point. Then you fast forward to the 1900s a little bit because this is when the role really started to become political. And it really starts with the pair of Roosevelts. So Edith Roosevelt, who was the wife of Teddy Roosevelt and the first lady when he was president, uh, basically kind of slowly started to build out what the first lady role would do. It wasn't just the social role anymore, but they started hiring staffs and communication staffs and secretaries and all of these things and built it into sort of an office of sorts where they were actually doing things and becoming a part of the policies that were being made. So they were turning into kind of a more political office as the first lady. And so Edith and Eleanor Roosevelt each made their various contributions to that and to building out like what the first lady would do. And they would work, the first lady's office would be in the East Wing, which is far from the West Wing, and all of these things. And so it wasn't just a social position anymore. However, the first ladies still don't have a lot of policy power. They can really only be an influence on their spouse, which has been seen in a variety of ways, which could go a long way. I mean, you look at Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt tremendously influenced Franklin. But and there's some others, I'm sure of it, but that's about it. That's all really the first lady could do. So what exactly, you were like, Anuj, these first ladies were building out offices. Like you were just saying that there was some sort of role for them. What is the exact role that they had if they didn't have policy power? So here's the thing, right? And before I get into that, I'll just a quick mention to Jackie Kennedy for being, I mean, Jackie Kennedy is the perfect example of what a first lady typically was supposed to be seen as. Jackie Kennedy was seen as attractive. She was seen as the style icon, the celebrity, and she was known for everything else but her politics. And side note, Indian parents just love Jackie Kennedy. I don't know if it's just me, but Indian parents love Jackie Kennedy. Anyway, she was known for being a celebrity more than she was being known for actually making change in the country, which is what the first lady should be known as, especially if you're the president's wife. At least in my opinion, I don't know. I don't really know. But that's kind of started to change over time. So Jackie Kennedy, obviously being the exception, there have been first ladies like Rosalind Carter, Laura Bush, Barbara Bush, many who have done a lot of work. So let's go through some of them really quickly and some of the causes that these first ladies have battled for in the past. So you have Lady Bird Johnson, who's Lyndon B. Johnson's wife. She battled for highway beautification and safety. You had Betty Ford, Gerald Ford's wife, who battled for destigmatizing education. Hillary Clinton, who actually was the first lady to be integrated into the West Wing, and so she worked with them and really ran point person on healthcare administration, healthcare policy for the administration. Laura Bush's main cause that she was fighting for was childhood literacy. Michelle Obama's main cause was childhood obesity. Melania Trump, cyberbullying and discouraging that, as ironic as that may be. And Jill Biden, the current first lady in office right now, has made her policy focus to be helping military families. So the question is how much of this has actually been accomplished. Because I'm going to use Michelle Obama as kind of a case study, right? Because this is the one I know the most about, in my opinion. My plate was a phase. Okay. My plate was a huge phase when I was in high school. What I remember of my plate was that, or not when I was in high school, when I was in elementary school. What I remember of my plate and Michelle Obama's initiative with trying to reduce childhood obesity were that there were posters all over the school telling us what our plates should look like. But the lunch lady still gave me double cookies and double fruit cups if I asked for it. And no one gave a fuck. My plate was kind of just thrown to the side in a lot of extents. And Melania Trump's cyberbullying initiative clearly hasn't gotten off the ground. I mean, where's that at? Like, like, where did these initiatives go? Betty Ford was destigmatizing addiction in the 1970s, but yet AA is still looked down upon in this country in 2022. What is happening? Why is there no follow through on these initiatives? Because I feel like if after their husbands complete their terms or finish the election or whatever, like the first ladies have moved on. I mean, no offense to Michelle Obama. I know everybody loves Michelle Obama and she's everyone's favorite person to love. But Michelle Obama just kind of left my plate and childhood obesity in the dust because what has she done since she left office in 2016? She wrote a book. She went on a huge book tour where she charged like $300 per person to even get into her freaking Q&A sessions. Believe me, I tried. And you get into, that she went on a huge book tour. She wrote a book, and now she was quoted in an interview recently saying that she wants to, quote, retire. She wants to retire. So, like, I mean, listen, I'm not faulting Michelle Obama for retiring. I'm not faulting her for any of these things. I just feel like and this goes for a lot of first ladies, these feel like just passion projects that are half-assed and fully not seen through because each lady's got a different focus and they're going after these broad, huge, big picture issues. So you can't solve a lot of these things. Destigmatizing like addiction, highway beautification, all of these things are still issues. There hasn't been fundamental changes to any of those things. So what is the solution to actually making the first lady position useful within America? In my opinion, it's to really just take one cause amongst maybe 4 or 5 first ladies, change it every 20 years, and focus all your attention on building that cause. I don't care if you are not passionate about that cause and you want to shift direction. Because when you shift direction, what happens is every first lady has their own cause. And then when the president or first gentleman potentially in the future, when that happens, when the president loses, the first lady / gentleman in the future is just going to leave. They're just going to dip. And then that passion project is just going to be half-assed like the rest of the first lady initiatives have been for the last 50 years. So what are we really doing? What are the first ladies really doing? Right? I don't know. I don't know. I think the coolest part of the first lady was I mean I don't like Hillary Clinton. I don't really give her a lot of credit, but I'll give her credit for this. I mean, it's super cool to see her back in the 1990s just tapped into the policy side of things and helping her husband out as much as she could. That's cool. That's cool in my opinion. But here's the thing: are we going to see a lot more of that in the future? I don't know. I mean, I saw Vice. I saw Vice, which is like this, which is the movie about Dick Cheney, where he basically takes the ceremonial position of the vice president and turns it into like a huge ruling chair where he basically controlled it. Are we going to see a first lady control the president through seduction? Are we going to see a first gentleman, smoothly become a de facto president? Are we going to see a first lady just like be an alpha boss and take over and become the freaking president of the United States through being a first lady? I don't know. I don't freaking know where the future of the first lady position is going, but it's just thoughts to think about because what really is the first lady doing? And I'm not trying to understate the importance of the first lady. Okay. I know the first lady's been important and they can be really good unifiers for the country and they can go tremendously underrated, but I don't know. I feel like there should be some changes to the position. And that's all I'm saying. Okay. Or maybe they should actually get to work with the presidents and be more actively involved in politics if that's what they choose to do. Or they should just keep normal civilian jobs. Like whatever they were doing in the past, like just do that. Just do that. Live their life. Why do you have to go after a cause if you don't want to? Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on first ladies, and that's the show that I have today. We're wrapping it up. Hour and 9 minutes. I know this went long. I appreciate all of you for sticking with me. Thank you so much for listening to the Changavi Show, episode 31 in the books. Appreciate all of you that have stuck with me to the end. If you're on Spotify, feel free to hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube, go and like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're on any other podcasting platform, feel free to leave me a good review or a shitty one. Tell me why. Give me feedback. I'm always down to hear it. If you guys want to join the Chang Gang on all social media platforms, feel free to do so. I'm on Facebook now for all my old heads out there. So go like my page and go follow my page. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on TikTok, all under the handle at The Changavi Show. The Changavi Show, just the way it's spelled. You type that into any social media platform, you can hit the follow button and follow me. Yeah, and that's all I got, really. This is episode 31. Changavi, Anuj Changavi, signing off from the Bay Area, from his parents' house, late at night with my computer at 5% battery life. It's an honor to do this show. I appreciate all of you for sticking with me. Hope you guys have a great day. And yeah, that's all I got. All right, guys. All right, all right, all right. I'm gonna do that Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right. To finish every show now. Yeah, that's what we're doing. All right, all right, all right. All right, everybody. Peace.